Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going into, well, a massive economic and social challenge, one that really touches nearly every family in Jamaica.
Hmm. It's that foundational question, right?
Exactly. Who actually owns the land they live on?
And that's where we want to focus, this systematic effort by the government to finally resolve decades of ambiguity. We're talking about the Systematic Land Registration Program,
Or SLRP.
right, the SLRP. And you could argue it's the most significant economic reform happening in the country right now.
And the scale of this is, what first caught our attention. Just recently, the minister without portfolio announced this huge
Oh,
milestone.
the ceremony in St. Elizabeth.
That's the one. At just one event, 700 residents across 34 communities received their registered land titles.
And that number, it really represents the end of, in some cases, generations of worry. It's
Yeah.
a massive, measurable step for those families.
But, and this is the core of our deep dive today, this program is walking a very high wire.
It is. It offers this incredible, long overdue security, but the actual process of sorting out these old, messy claims, it comes with some very real, very significant risks.
Enormous promise, but also the peril of potential abuse. So our mission today is to help you understand the full picture of land ownership in Jamaica, why it's so tied to livelihood, inheritance, and identity.
And how the SLRP is trying to bridge that huge gap between owning land in practice and actually owning it on paper.
Right. Let's start with the problem itself, the invisible owners.
To really get the solution, you have to feel the pain point first. In most developed countries, you buy property, you get a title. Simple.
But not in Jamaica.
Not at all. You might have bought the land, paid your taxes on it, lived there for 50 years, and you're still, for all intents and purposes, invisible in the formal system.
And that invisibility comes down to the documents, or really the lack of them. We're not talking about a piece of paper you misplaced last year.
No, not at all. We are talking about what they call old-style land documents. This could be a handwritten agreement, a stamped receipt from, some informal deal.
Or even just a family letter passed down from a grandparent.
Exactly. And while that might hold up in the community, it's completely useless if you walk into a bank, an insurance company, or the government land registry.
And what's really frustrating is that even people who tried to do everything by the book got stuck.
Right. They ran into this kind of legal deadlock. Maybe you bought a lot, but the developer never formally subdivided the original parent title.
So your individual ownership just isn't registered.
It's not. Or the original owner died without a will, and the land is trapped in what's called prolonged probate. We've seen stories of people stuck for 5, 10, even 15 years.
Spending thousands of dollars with lawyers and getting absolutely nowhere.
Precisely. So let's be really specific about what that title is. You said these owners are invisible. What are they legally missing?
They're missing the volume and folio number under the Registered Land Act.
And you should think of that volume and folio as the land's unique ID. It's like its social security number, guaranteed by the government.
So without that number, the government just doesn't recognize your ownership with any legal certainty.
That's the bottom line. So the real risk of that old handwritten deed isn't just that someone might challenge you.
It's that the formal system itself won't recognize you.
You've hit it exactly. They can live on the land, build on the land, but legally and economically, they're like ghosts. You have possession, but you don't have security. And that gap is what the SLRP is trying to fill.
Okay, so that distinction, possession versus ownership, that brings us to the real function of a title. The source material calls it the dividing line between economic participation and exclusion.
This is the so what moment. This is about unlocking dormant capital. When a home is informally owned, it's an asset you can live on, but you can't leverage it.
And without a registered title, there are, 5 really critical, life-changing things families just cannot do.
Right, let's walk through them. Number one, and it's the most obvious one, is you can't secure a mortgage.
Which isn't just about buying a new house. It means you can't borrow against your home to pay for your kid's university or a medical emergency.
Correct. Number two, you can't access formal credit. Say a small farmer wants a business loan. Their most valuable asset is their land, but it's not recognized as collateral.
So the capital is just sleeping.
The capital is sleeping, and the title is the alarm clock. Number three, you can't properly insure your property. So when a hurricane hits and you're trying to rebuild, proving ownership becomes a nightmare.
Your life savings are just incredibly vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. And number four is crucial. You can't pass land cleanly to future generations. Without a clear title, every generation just adds another layer of confusion. More disputes, more problems.
Perpetuating the very issue the SLRP is trying to solve.
Exactly. And finally, number 5, it's hard to fully comply with property taxes, not because people don't want to pay, but because the legal owner and the boundaries are unclear.
So if you just imagine a family, let's say they're living on land worth 5 million Jamaican dollars.
For 50 years, that $5 million was locked. Now, with a title, they can get a loan for maybe $2 million, start a small business, build an extension for rental income.
That certainty changes everything.
It is the definition of economic stability. It's a complete paradigm shift for that family.
Okay, so the problem is massive. We're talking billions in untapped wealth, families in legal limbo. The SLRP has to be just as massive. What does the systematic part actually mean on the ground?
It means they're flipping the model. They're moving from a reactive system where the government only acts if you go and try to register to a proactive one.
So they're not waiting for people to come to them.
No, the government is identifying entire communities and adjudicating them block by block. They're trying to clear the backlog in one big push.
And the program is already expanding, right? We're at 276 communities declared under this systematic adjudication.
Which is a huge undertaking. The core of it all rests on recognizing long-term occupation over missing paperwork.
So what are the rules for that?
The SLRP is there for people who have been in open, undisturbed, and undisputed possession of land for 12 years or more.
Okay, 12 years of undisputed possession. That sounds simple. But if there's no paper trail, how on earth do they prove that?
That is the immense logistical challenge. Proving it relies heavily on the community itself, local witnesses, agreements between neighbors, looking at physical markers.
So it's not just lawyers in an office.
Not at all. The process involves public meetings, surveys, trying to build a consensus on the ground. And if two neighbors dispute a boundary, well, the whole thing can slow right down. It's as much community sociology as it is law.
And the most revolutionary part, especially for low-income families, is that the government is removing that huge financial barrier.
Yes, the program states that survey and legal costs are covered up front.
And that really is the game changer.
It is. Historically, even with a valid claim, the cost of a survey and legal fees could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was just inaccessible.
But by covering those costs, the government turns it from an elite legal process into a public service. It's finally including people who the system always excluded.
And to understand why so many were excluded, we have to look back a bit. The history here is really important.
Okay, so where did this backlog even come from?
Well, before 1888, land ownership in Jamaica was governed by common law deeds. Think private documents, handwritten, easily lost, easily damaged.
So it was all based on these very vulnerable, privately held papers.
Exactly. Then, after 1888, the Registration of Titles Act brings in the Torrens system. And the Torrens system is critical because it means the government guarantees the title.
So ownership isn't proven by a stack of old deeds anymore. It's proven by that single volume and folio number from the state.
Right. But the problem was that modernization didn't happen overnight. For over a century, you had this huge gap. People continued with informal sales, family land arrangements, while the official registry moved on.
And now, trying to fix that gap brings us to the enormous risks. The source material is very clear on the danger of generational land grabbing.
It's an established tactic. Unscrupulous people know how to work the system.
So let's talk about those tactics. How would someone try to hijack the SLRP process to, steal land from a vulnerable owner?
They use the system's own reliance on witnesses against it. They might manufacture false evidence, pay off unreliable witnesses to swear they've been on the land.
Or just aggressively exploit a boundary dispute, knowing the true owner can't afford a long fight.
Exactly. The fear is that sophisticated actors will just outmaneuver the truly vulnerable people the program is meant to help.
Which leads directly to that other big concern, widening inequality. If the process is complex, the people with resources and legal knowledge get their titles first.
And the most vulnerable families, who might lack literacy or connections, get left even further behind.
And we can't forget the heritage side of this. The sources are really specific about the need for special care with historically protected lands.
Specifically maroon lands, communal lands, and customary family holdings.
Why are those lands so different? Why does a standard titling process pose a threat to them?
Because the Torrens system, which the SLRP is based on, is fundamentally about individual ownership. But communal lands, like maroon lands, are often held by an entire community.
So there isn't one single owner.
Right. Multiple people, or the whole community, have rights to use the land, but no one person holds an individual title. If you try to force an individual registration system onto that.
You risk breaking up that heritage. You could erode the entire cultural fabric of those communities.
Absolutely. It needs clear audits, specialist oversight, and real cultural competence from the people running the program. You have to respect those long-standing community agreements.
It's a very, very delicate balancing act.
It is. Which brings us to the most important factor for success: public trust.
Ultimately, this whole thing isn't just about handing out paper. It's about people believing the process is fair. Trust is everything.
It is. Because if the process is seen as rigged, or if a few high-profile abuses happen, people will just stop participating, and the whole thing fails.
So what are the pillars that trust has to be built on?
Well, first, you need transparent adjudication processes and clear appeals mechanisms. People need to know how a decision was made.
And if they disagree, they need a way to challenge it that doesn't take another 15 years.
Right. Secondly, you need strict accountability. We're talking independent audits and controls to prevent corruption inside the adjudication offices.
Because if the government is paying for the legal work, there has to be oversight to make sure that money is being spent properly.
For sure. And professionally, the teams on the ground need to be balanced. You need people with deep local land experience who understand the history.
But you also need fresh external oversight to keep the process honest and stop local biases from creeping in.
Which brings us back to the critical questions every single Jamaican family is asking right now.
Who oversees the overseers?
Exactly. How are disputes resolved fairly? And what safeguards are there against abuse of power?
And if those questions are answered clearly, they create shadows. And as the material says, shadows breed distrust.
And that distrust doesn't just halt the program. It reinforces that historical fear that the formal system is always rigged against the little guy.
So to bring this all together, the expansion of the SLRP is, without a doubt, a necessary major step forward.
Absolutely essential for economic stability and for reducing those generational conflicts over land.
It's the key to unlocking billions of dollars in dormant capital for the country.
But, and it's a huge but, the implementation has to be fair, transparent, and socially responsible. The ambition is enormous, and the risks are just as large.
Because this isn't just about swapping old stained paper for new, crisp paper. It's about finally bringing thousands of Jamaicans into the formal land system.
Not just on paper, but in reality. Giving them the economic rights their physical possession always should have had.
So, to leave you with a final thought, think about the collective economic resilience and social stability of Jamaica once this huge foundational uncertainty is removed.
Once that 5, 10, 15-year legal limbo is gone. When property rights are secured at scale, what new opportunities for local investment, for infrastructure, for generational wealth, what does that unleash for the next generation of Jamaican families and entrepreneurs?